think that we've had a brief display of the coupled words that we assumed for the curation of these PHONOVOICE meetings this year, dissonance, dissonance. And I think that we have seen how dissonance allows us to understand how the political movements of the voice and can help us perceive the future, a hopeful future. So today we have Alessandra Eramo. She's an Italian-German sound artist, a vocalist and a performer, and she's been working with extended voice techniques and noise and electronics. And her work is involves some political ritual aspects of sound. We also have Fernando Aguiar. Fernando is a visual artist, poet and performer, working and living in Lisbon, and his work explores the interactions and the intersections of sound poetry with performance, installation, public art, and artists' books making as well. And finally, Miguel, soon to join us. Hello, Miguel. Is the coordinator and the organizer of these sound poetry meetings with Miso Music, to whom we are very grateful. And for a long time, since last year, we wanted to invite Miguel to be one of our performers, but apparently you cannot invite organizers.
You shouldn't.
But Miguel is really a truly important figure in the installation, sound poetry environment in Portugal. And I'm very glad to have him here with us. So, maybe we could start by asking each of the guests here to briefly tell us how is it that the invitation to approach sound poetry, thinking of the dissonance pair of words, was interesting to you.
Começo eu vou falar em português, acho que é mais lógico. Até que a plateia também.
I'll translate when needed.
Okay. Bom, em relação a essa questão da dissidência, eu penso que no caso da poesia experimental, quase que diria que a poesia experimental ou visual, por definição, é dissidente. Portanto, é uma poesia que se pode caracterizar ela própria nesse sentido. Em relação à dissonância, sim, o mesmo pode acontecer, ou se pode dizer em relação à poesia sonora. Aliás, agora aqui os exemplos da Catalina Dick e do Yapolong. E pronto, são exemplificativos, acho que sim.
In which way does your work involve historically and...
Pois, eu não considero propriamente que o meu trabalho esteja dentro da poesia sonora, até porque considero que o poeta sonoro, por exemplo, o caso dos vídeos que nós vimos, do Yapolong, da Catalina, muitos outros, do Américo Rodrigues, por exemplo, aqui em Portugal, são poetas que trabalham sobretudo com as capacidades vocais, portanto, com as distorções, essencialmente com a voz. O meu trabalho é essencialmente com a palavra, portanto, a minha base de trabalho, a minha base mesmo de leituras poéticas é sempre a palavra. E por isso, nesse sentido, não me considero tanto um poeta sonoro, enfim, um poeta experimental que diz os seus poemas.
Muito bem. Alessandra, how did you take our invitation to approach sound poetry with these couple words of dissonance, dissidence?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really thankful to be here and excited. Yes, I was very happy to receive this invitation, especially for this edition with those topics of dissidence and dissonance. This is something resonates to me a lot, especially in this period. In Europe, in Berlin, I do live in Berlin, and so I really welcome this invitation to create a piece that you will hear tonight, and it's a piece that includes text, voice, of course, and because I work a lot with voice, through the voice, and also some recordings I've been doing of protests in Berlin, of very recent protests. So my approach to sound poetry is, let's say, something, I would say, bodily. I have the sensation that everything starts from the body, and the body knows. So I can find a connection with work, probably with the work of Jaap Blonk, to my work, this bodily expression through the voice, and beyond the sound, that sound becomes a word, and the word becomes something else. So I like to play with this interaction between media and elements. So I don't know, I talk too much. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
thank you.
And Miguel, how was it that the organization of this event welcomed this new idea of having a topic to develop?
Well, it was very much welcomed, because I think all art and any form of art is politics by nature, by definition, I would say. And I am someone that believes that aesthetical choices, all of those choices have a political content. So having these two words, I think it just fulfills what is the purpose of art. Not only because of its inherent, so to speak, political content, but also because I think that art by definition is a disruption and a questioning of the times the artist lives in. So probably it has always been like that, dissident and dissonant from all ages. But despite this being always there, I think in this specific political, social, I would say civilizational and philosophical moment, I think those two words are of they are extremely important to just focus on this aspect of what art can be. And one is in fact the statement of its freedom, non-compromised freedom, which sometimes has led artists to be, how do you say, persecuted, and sometimes to live in very poor material conditions. And to show that art, the commitment artists have to this type of expression, which is a very unique way of, let's say, combining intelligence and sensitivity, has led them without compromise until the end, I would say. Until the end, in the sense of until the end, the way they have pursued their research in terms of language, in terms of communication. And so I think this is really part of what art is about. And so the same way that dissidence also has to do the fact that we need always to question what is happening now, at any times. So, by definitions, we are always dissidents. And the dissonance, I think it's an interesting word because it has, in my understanding, two important meanings. One, dissonance is connected with sound, and so I think that in the 21st century, all sound is about, let's say, an understanding, or all sound art, whatever it would be. Sound art as such, in a more restricted way, or just music, is about the integration of a very broader, what music is now, what is understood as being possibly music nowadays, as a very wide scope, a very broad scope, from noise, from Russolo and before, and for field recordings, the integration of soundscapes, the awareness of what sound, how much sound influences us all around us. And so the idea that you go from consonance to dissonance, the fact, because to a certain point, music was understood as being, by definition, consonant. And the fact that you introduce the idea of dissonance as a disruption, at the same time, it embodies and integrates all the concepts, both consonance and dissonance. So in the sense of sound poetry, either we approach, as Fernando was saying, from you start as a poet and you bring poetry into sound, which in fact was always there also, or if you come from sound or from music and you bring poetry into music. Either way, it's always this presence of the understanding of sound by itself. Like what I like to say, that the turning phonetics into semantics and semantics into phonetics. I think sound poetry is very much about that, no matter if you start from the poetry or if you start from the music. So I'm sorry, I've been talking so much, but really this dissonance really resonates deeply into what I understand not only is sound poetry, but art as such.
Thank you, Miguel. One of the things, I will try to keep the conversation there and then move back here. One of the things that strikes me with Miso Music and several concerts and festivals that you've been hosting is that historically they are also kind of a dissident, it's an alternative space, an alternative venue, even though it's financed and funded, but it's clearly an alternative space for new voices, new languages to experiment, and sound poetry is one example of that. How do you think that this pairing of dissonance, dissidence is important for us today in the current political environment to find a new alternative venue for sound poetry and artists like Alessandra and Fernando and Dirk and Sarah to work?
Yeah, I think that we do, as an organization, Miso Music Portugal, we commission a lot of works. We are celebrating 40 years now of existence in 2025, and we have commissioned more than 200 works to many different composers and artists. And the idea is that art is a space of freedom, and without any concerns, although material or economic or financial aspects are unavoidable, but in my understanding, as art as knowledge, like in fundamental research in science. We need to be, art for entertainment, which I do not call art, but anyway, entertainment and all those things are allowed. They are not forbidden. That's clear. Let's make it clear. But they have a certain purpose. And the purpose of art, for me, is to think about something. It's about thinking. It's about knowledge. And it needs to be able to follow a path in complete freedom. Otherwise, you will not reach any really important results. It has always been like that. And the current hegemonic marketing, capitalist, tyranny makes things that art is measured not because of its qualities, but because of its quantity. And I think art should be completely outside of this type of concerns, because it will not lead to anything interesting, And in that sense, Miso Music, its main purpose is to promote creation, to promote artistic creation in a completely freedom way. So when we founded this place 11 years ago, in the opening speech, I said that this was a roof to protect artists from tempests, depressions, bad weather, and that's for me, it's very important that we keep it like that. So you can come here. You are not. You concentrate on your work, to express your work without concern if you have a lot of audience. It's not the purpose, In that sense, it's completely dissident and dissonant to the mainstream, And I really believe that humankind has been able to evolve, always starting in marginal, modest ways of thinking that appeared later on to be of extreme value and extreme importance to the path of humanity, as such. So for me, being small or being the idea of being resistant, it's absolutely no problem. It's absolutely no problem for me. So sound poetry, which is a niche within the niche within the niche, is very much welcome. And we are so many here today, because numbers do not count.
Yes. Alessandra, you must be used to this kind of niche of the niche of the niche in your works, and these ritualistic and intimist environments that become alternative spaces for alternative voices. How do you feel that this spot here allows you to expand your sound poetry premises?
I like also to think about, as you were talking and after your question, I like the word alleanza, alliance.
Yes.
Something that unites people, something that where we can find a common space of discussion, conversation. So this is how I feel this space at the moment, and this has a potential of expanding itself. So I like the idea that you have been talking about the margin, from the margin towards
Absolutely.
something else, and I maybe it's pure idealism, but I really believe that we can expand ourselves somehow. And I have this impression that, in my experience at least, playing performing in sometimes in kind of intimate setting or smaller for a smaller audience, for a small venue, even through bigger festivals with maybe even hundreds of people in the audience. So, but still, I try to recreate this intimacy through my concert performance, what it is. Even if I do some fixed media work, I present fixed media like a video work in a museum. I try always to recreate sort of intimate space. So maybe we can call niche, I'm not sure, because niche, it is indeed the space of niche, no? But niche, yeah, we can say niche. It's a French word, I think. But at the same time, I think, as you said before, even in the niche is not, it can be very powerful, and very often this niche can be dangerous for the power, and I mean.
Yes, sometimes it can be indeed.
Yeah, so dangerous in terms of course, not really dangerous because we are very peaceful, mostly of us people. But yes, I think you understand what I mean. And so, viva la niche.
Fernando, o que é ler, performar poesia em galerias, museus, espaços pouco normativos, por assim dizer, daquilo que é considerado o espaço normal de apresentação de poesia?
Pois, realmente este tipo de poesia tem um nicho muito específico, muito limitado, e é curioso, quando o Miguel estava a falar enfim, que não era importante ter tanta gente a assistir. Eu já, enfim, passei talvez pelos extremos. Já li nos Açores num auditório para 2 pessoas. O diretor do auditório da biblioteca e a pessoa que me convidou. E por outro lado, já li para 6.000 pessoas num estádio em Medellín, na Colômbia. Portanto, são experiências completamente diferentes. Mas realmente o normal é um público limitado, mas que enfim, normalmente ou quase sempre é constituído por pessoas interessadas e que nesse sentido talvez seja mais importante ler para uma dúzia, 20 pessoas, 30 pessoas que estão interessadas em ouvir do que para uma quantidade muito grande em que, enfim, o interesse talvez não seja tanto. Por isso, eu entretanto, ao fim de tantas leituras que fiz, já me deixei tanto preocupar com o número de pessoas. Ao princípio, eu às vezes tinha essa preocupação porque associava um bocado o não ter público à fraca qualidade ou à falta de interesse pelo meu trabalho. Bom, mas percebi que não era só pelo meu, portanto, se estivéssemos num festival com 10 pessoas, o público era exatamente o mesmo, portanto, por isso ultrapassei um pouco essa questão.
Yes, this idea that the difference between a voice to entertain and a voice to question, affect, and to show that reality is unstable, just like our current life is. Because Fernando was saying that performing to 2 persons or 6,000 sometimes does not make a big difference in terms of creative output. I'd like to bring that to question. How is it that your voices, when perform sound poetry, are there not as much to be entertaining, but rather questioning and without thinking of the public, if ever?
The question for me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I've chosen years ago to not entertain. This was a clear choice. Also thinking about in music system, musical context, the idea to compose music for example, for publicity, for that your music becomes the sound for publicity for a yogurt, for example. This is really something I said no. This is the thing. That said, I think that the relationship with the audience for me is very important. So I do think of the relationship as a gift, that I give something and the audience gives me back something. So even in that moment, this listening experience, it's already a relationship. So this is how I conceive the concert situation with the audience, and like almost like an exchange. So for me, as was said before, maybe there is not much a difference between if there is there are two people in the audience, or 2,200. But still, as a performer, you establish a relationship, and you can feel what is coming back at that moment. This is some. You used the word before, like a ritualistic aspect of performing, and maybe this is something I would say it has to do with a kind of ritual. Yeah, I don't know if I precisely answer to the question, but yeah.
Thank you.
Diz, Fernando.
Não, eu talvez acrescentar que para mim é muito mais importante, não quero dizer que as pessoas que não sejam importantes, mas isso é um imponderável que não se controla, portanto. Agora, para mim é muito importante, ou sempre foi importante, o espaço onde eu faço a leitura, a intervenção. Não gosto de chamar nem performance, é mais uma intervenção poética do que propriamente performance, também pelo processo que já fiz, em que o performer utiliza sobretudo o corpo, eu utilizo sobretudo a palavra, portanto, acho que faz a intervenção poética e não tanto performance, mas pronto.
Eu chamo ação poética.
Ação poética, pode ser. Os espanhóis têm um termo que acho muito interessante, que é perfopoesia. Perfopoesia, exato. Acho um termo bastante interessante. Eu estava a dizer então que, para mim, é essencial saber sempre onde é que vou fazer o trabalho. Porque eu penso a minha intervenção para aquele local específico. Se for uma galeria, pronto, até tem as suas características. Se for um museu ou um palco de um teatro maior, tem outras características, até terá outras possibilidades técnicas que podem ser exploradas. O caso daqui, onde eu vou estrear alguns poemas sonoros. Isto era uma dizer, será a primeira vez que leio com esse envolvimento sonoro, mas isto para dizer que eu concebi a minha intervenção nesse sentido, porque era este espaço e sabia que havia essas condições técnicas. Portanto, isso para mim é essencial. Não gosto de fazer uma intervenção, uma ação, sem saber exatamente o espaço. Porque acho que devo adequar o meu trabalho ao espaço, não é só isso. Não.
E este espaço é um espaço...
Espaço in space.
This venue. This venue, he adapts his work, his performative actions into specific spaces, and this is a wonderful space.
Agora deixa-me dizer que este espaço para mim é um dos espaços que eu gosto mais, porque é um espaço intimista, é um grande espaço, e é um espaço que tem as condições, pelo menos aquelas que eu necessito. Portanto, para mim, este é o espaço ideal para fazer performance. Ou a intervenção de espaço. Não é perfeito,
quase perfeito.
Mas nesse sentido, para mim, é um espaço quase perfeito.
Muito obrigado. But I would like just to add to what we were talking about I think that nowadays, just about communication, sharing with the audience, of course you would like to have, instead of 10 people, to have 1,000. But what is really mandatory, in my understanding, is what I could call a concentrated, I don't know if you say that, uma escuta concentrada, a concentrated listening or an attentive listening. this is already a form of the resistance against what is happening everywhere and all the time. You know, the fact that we listen carefully to something, that we devote time and we devote concentration to listening, either it be music or poetry or sound poetry. Nowadays, I think it's already an act of resistance. And enabling this possibility is really meaningful in my understanding. So I think I would even could say that it is ecologically relevant because it's an ecological statement. And I think we really need to think seriously in, let's say, the politics of ecology, you know. And so being listening carefully to music, to sound, to poetry is the same as listening carefully to the earth, to the sounds around us, to the people around us. You know, if we do listen carefully, there will be no wars, barbarities, no injustice, no social problems. It's impossible if you listen carefully. So, in that sense, art with sound that promotes a listening attitude is extremely relevant. And it's already a very strong political statement against all the other things that are not. So that's it. Yeah. So no matter. If we manage to do it to 1,000, wonderful. That is, there is 1,000 people listening carefully and ecologically. If it's only 10, I'm very sorry, we are only 10. Bad for the world.
Yes. Listening, yes, I agree. Listening is indeed a political action. But seeing as well. And in the case of Fernando mostly, but also in the work of Alessandra, there's an intersection of different disciplines. It's not only about sound poetry or the exploration of the musical properties of the voice, but also some visual aspects of, and we have seen in Vladic performance how the word, the letter becomes a strong political aspect as well. How is it that you bring to your performances tonight, if at all, the visual aspects of language, and how do they intersect with this political dissonance of the voice? Fernando, como é que te consegue, porque o teu trabalho tem muito que ver com a letra, a palavra e o modo como ela se relaciona e intercepta com a voz, com o som da palavra. Como é que trazes isso hoje aqui? Se quiseres talvez antecipar um pouco a tua performance de hoje.
Bom, eu trabalho com a poesia experimental, essencialmente, no caso das intervenções poéticas, e tento sempre explorar alguns aspectos do poema que possam permitir ir além da leitura, ou através da utilização de objetos ou de alguns adereços que correspondem ao poema, enfim, ao conceito do poema. Não trabalho tanto com as capacidades vocais, porque acho que enfim, é um aspecto que nunca tentei explorar, portanto, não, porque acho mais interessante concentrar-me na palavra e no modo como essas palavras, esse poema pode ser dito, quer apenas só o poema, só a leitura simples, ou utilizando vídeo, utilizando envolvimento sonoro, utilizando objetos ou alguns adereços, enfim, que possam preencher mais o espaço. Por isso, no fundo, o que me interessa é sempre explorar as capacidades do poema, aquilo que o poema pode dizer ou mostrar mais para além daquilo que é. E aqui foi uma leitura de meia hora, 35 minutos, em que vou ler alguns poemas que demonstram essas possibilidades.
Que vêm do trocabulário, principalmente, ou não só?
Do vocabulário que
A cassete?
Não. Sim, há alguns poemas que estão na cassete.
Mas são mais recente.
Agora tem uma adição de sonoro, de ambiente sonoro, em alguns casos, claro, nem todos. O trocabulário é uma leitura mais ou menos simples, que foi interessante fazer, mas aqui consigo desenvolver mais, até pelas possibilidades técnicas que o espaço permite, portanto.
Alessandra.
Yeah, in my specific case, yes, I like interaction, and I experiment quite a lot with several media. For instance, I create drawings which are for me very connected with my vocal act, my vocalization, and I work since some years on this. So yeah, let's call it visual annotation, or and I always realize how much those signs on paper has their own life sometimes, even if they are, for me at least, strongly connected with the sound that I produce, that I imagine in that moment while I'm drawing. But still, afterward I realize that sometimes they have their own life, and they can even live without any sort of exposition, I don't know how to say, with the sound. And so I like to play a lot with this confusion. I like to create confusion. I don't like order. And this is something very difficult because we are used from school, from many contexts, to have a kind of our thought to be linear, no? But I like to play a lot with this confusion, and I find a source of creativity and infinite possibilities in the mixture and interaction between media. So this is, I would say, my approach to sound poetry, to visual poetry, and I studied visual art, but I was missing music. Because I come from music, actually. I studied classical singing when I was young. And then I started again to work with my body, with my voice, so things are extremely connected to me. And it took a lot of years for me to have a kind of peace and love with this interaction between men. But yeah. But I'm sure I'm really not the only one. We are so many artists outside there who are experimenting with media, and musicians who are working with paintings and drawings and with words. So and there are many art forms that anyway mix up, like opera, let's say, no? Anyway, you have many disciplines together, so I don't know, again, I'm talking maybe too much, but yeah.
Wonderful that you bring the opera issue here, because with the PHONOVOICE meetings, we have tried to simulate and align ourselves with a relation between voice as a technology and other technologies. And in the case of Miguel, if you allow me, Miguel has a very important, relevant work in the field of electroacoustic opera. That's how he frames it. And I think that in that case, we are far beyond, or more beyond the idea of simple visual poetics and So there's a lot more other languages involved in your sound poetry explorations, right?
Yeah, somehow, try to make it short. It's just mostly about a kind of, let's say, intertextuality about the different type of art forms. Those that can be connected like a little bit of a network of possibilities. So somehow the binary system of computers has free us from the linearity of any narrative or any plot. And so because of this binary system, somehow we are always translating a certain media to another. You can translate sound into words and words into visuals, and so somehow it depends on how you'd like to do it, but there is a certain transversality, or I prefer the word intertextuality, in the way that we can think in the same way, no matter if you are a poet or a musician, if you know how to play with the elements of the language, the parameters, the syntaxes, the vocabulary, then there is no reason why, if you want to, it's not mandatory, but if you'd like to and if you want to, there is no reason why you could not just go from one to another. And in that sense, if you can go from one to another at the same level, so all of them are possible if it's your intention to do so. And so, of course, in my case, I have to confess that I have a partner. This partner is very influential on my work and very complementary. So we share some parts of this big labor. So I take care of more of one aspect than the others. Because also at the same time I've been already doing poetry and composition and trying to make them, let's say, to gather them in one only piece of something. Well, that's it. So when I'm performing, a lot of people tell me, oh, it's so much about theater and performance, but I'm not a theater person, I'm a musician. And somehow it becomes something, and this something, in my understanding, could only be done by a musician, not by, let's say, a stage director. A stage director will thought completely differently about the way it is done. So the way of working, the path to follow, and in the end the result is as a certain type of background, and the connection or the interconnection between the medias are somehow relevant in that sense. What is your background?
How is it that you involve your public, your audiences, be it 2 people or 2,000? Is this a relevant question for how you organize your performances?
Of course, before performance, I try to understand, of course, the kind of venue, how big it is. Of course, this is very simple, but no, it's not really relevant, I must say. Recently, I performed in Berlin for a festival, and there was quite big stage, let's say. So it didn't make any difference in the intention, in the communication with the audience. I didn't feel that. Well, it was an ensemble piece. I was not alone on the stage, but anyway, just to take an example. Yeah.
Ok. Fernando, o público é importante na forma de interagir com ele ou não?
Se estiver por aí, deve funcionar. Funciona, não?
Não, este é.
Eu posso
Eu dirijo.
ajudar? Não, licença, porque este tipo
Ok, não, ok.
Já está ótimo.
Bom, como disse, para mim é fundamental saber o local e o país onde vou fazer a intervenção. É claro que, por exemplo, se for num país estrangeiro, eu não poderei ler poemas em português, ou poderei ler um ou outro em que se possa entender mais a estrutura, o ritmo, mas essencialmente lerei os poemas em aqueles que irei ler ou interpretar ou dizer em inglês. Nesse sentido, pronto, tenho atenção ao público para o qual irei trabalhar, mas é sempre mais importante, ou melhor, a base da estrutura do trabalho que eu vou fazer é sempre o espaço, até porque o espaço, de certa maneira, já pressupõe um certo tipo de público que vai assistir. Por isso, são dois exemplos recentes. Estive há pouco tempo na Áustria, por acaso fui a Belém, em que o espaço era o espaço de uma galeria, portanto era um público diferente. Por exemplo, quando depois também estive com a Catalina lá em Vicença, que era um festival só de poesia e o público era mais específico, sabíamos que pronto, era mais poetas também, mais estudantes, mas era mesmo um festival de poesia e portanto era mais específico para aquele público. Portanto, a intervenção que eu fiz, quer na Áustria ou em Itália, em Vicença, foram diferentes. Portanto, os espaços também eram diferentes. Um era um espaço mais galeria, o outro era um espaço... O outro até foi numa igreja que foi muito bonito pelo som, mas, portanto, era um espaço completamente diferente, sem possibilidades técnicas nenhumas. Portanto, era um espaço vazio. Por isso, eu preocupo-me em adequar o meu trabalho ao espaço onde esse trabalho vai ser desenvolvido e de certa maneira, já está relacionado com as pessoas que irão ver. Portanto, até como disse, quer dizer, nunca sabemos exatamente quem são as pessoas que vão ver, nem quantas. Claro. Por isso, não me foco muito nesse aspecto. Agora, o espaço onde vai ser feito o trabalho, sim, isso para mim é importante. Até para me sentir mais à vontade.
I ask this because we deal with exceptions, of course. It seems to me that sound poetry, even though it is a radical, or it tries to be a radical activity of deconstructing language, deconstructing our perception of the world and how we relate to the world, is still very much attached to unidirectional and linear performances, in the sense that they do not attract collaboration and interaction from the publics as we would expect. And that was my question. Do you think that venues such as these and the fact that sound poetry is intimately connected with musical venues and music performances is not interactive, and is that a defining aspect of sound poetry?
I don't think so. I think it's much more a question, a personal question of the artists themselves. If there are some people that are really concerned about this aspect and they really want to experiment and express themselves, having a very active participation from the audience, with in fact the pieces themselves, they already are made in such a way that these happen. Even you can have a poet just doing a collective reading. Instead of you read aloud your poem, you distribute the text, and each one is listening and can just at any moment start participating. So in music it's the same, or you can give some objects so the audience can interact and things like that, usually using very simple rules. Myself, I'm not really interested at all with interaction, with such interaction with the audience. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's, I don't know why, it's just, it does not make part of the process, of my process of thinking and composing or creating. So I place it in a different, for me, this belongs to a different place. I am sensitive to it. I think it's there are people that can do it very well, and it's very interesting. But myself, it's not something that really moves me. But I have nothing against it. It's just a question of a practical aspect.
In my case, yes, I'm quite open to interactions with audience. I've been also creating some pieces with instruction for the audience, or just sometimes improvising an interaction. I can mention, just that came to my mind in this moment, in 2015 with Tomomi Adachi, I did a duo exhibition and sound poetry event in Berlin in a quite small gallery. Many people came, also my parents from Italy, and no, because it's a story. And yeah, we have been collecting, Tomomi and me, for months, pieces of paper that we have stolen from how do you call it? Where you buy pens and I missed the word. These shops.
Yeah, shops with for.
So you know this piece of paper where yes, this piece of paper that people used to stationery. I missed the word. Pieces of paper where people try the pen if it's working or not. So we have been collecting all this stuff, all these pieces of paper, and we made an exhibition. Then we were improvising actually all these pieces. And then after this, our own interpretation, then we started to interact with the audience. So we had a lot of left pieces of paper, and so we started to distribute to the audience those pieces of paper, and then we made an ensemble piece with the audience. So this was very chaotic, and I loved that. There's a documentation online about this project, and so this was an example. So I was mentioning my parents because my father afterward said, "This is the psychiatry," because it was kind of a psychiatric moment, and it was a lot of laughing. And so with Tomomi, it's anyway a lot of fun. And so this is something I used to do in the past, and I always welcome also some interaction with the audience. Why not? Yeah.
Fernando, e tu? Que esperança tens do público interagir com os teus poemas?
Eu estou mais como o Miguel, quer dizer, gosto de estruturar o meu trabalho e não, enfim, nunca tive esse hábito de interagir muito com as pessoas. O que não quer dizer que num caso ou noutro específico não possa solicitar essa intervenção. Mas realmente prefiro tenho o trabalho estruturado e prefiro que ele siga como eu o pensei, assim, enfim, sinto-me mais... talvez um controle maior do trabalho que faço. Isso porque, pronto, eu participei também nos festivais de performance e há muitos performers em que o seu trabalho é essencialmente provocar as pessoas e interagir com elas e esperar o que é que vai resultar daí. Pronto, eu nunca estruturei o meu trabalho nesse sentido.
Outro aspecto que eu gostaria de trazer aqui à discussão, another aspect that I'd like to bring to discussion is collaboration. Most of your works, starting with Miguel and Alessandra, and to a certain degree Fernando as well, is multidisciplinary, and you engage with dialogues with different artists from different disciplines. How is it that those collaborations change or affect your sound poetry production?
You first.
Me first. Yes, I've been focusing on my solo work, but I also have been collaborating with many artists, also from other disciplines, like also from cinema and visual art, poets, and of course musicians and composers. So I am very open to always to collaboration, and for example, I'm also performing in a electronic music ensemble in Berlin called the Böse Blick. So just to mention one of. And I can mention, if I have 1 minute more, I can mention a special collaboration, an indirect collaboration I've been doing during the pandemic. And we are very lucky because tonight we have one of the artists who took part, who is Thea Faradian from California, and he's in our audience. And this project was kind of strange project, but I really loved. So it's called the Asocial Telepathic Ensemble, because we were non-social in that period, no? So we said, let's make it even stronger. We are asocial. We in German, asozial, it's also a political word somehow, because it was used by the Nazi, in the Nazi time. Asocial means a person on the margin, a person who is not taking part or to the society. So anyway, we started with Brandon Labelle, who is a theoretician and artist and writer. This project of listening each other with a group of artists from all over the world, and for 15 minutes we had this we have this idea of listening each other, but just listening through our telepathy. And we were a lot of artists, but not only artists, also curators from different disciplines, and we just listen to each other, and that's it. So what the task was just to record with whatever recording, just for 15 minutes, and then stop. That's it. And then for a long time, we have been discussing what should we do now with all these long recordings. And then later we decided, after maybe 1 year, to do a publication. And so I brought a tape tonight of this project. So this was a very special listening experience, let's say. In that period, during the pandemic, I think many of us, we were just getting crazy. So this kind of telepathic project, I think we were not the only one doing these strange things. And yes, so this was some weird cooperation I had, but really lovely way of listening, lovely way to cooperate.
Yes, thank you.
Well, especially as a composer, you are always collaborating. Always collaborating with musicians, sometimes with a lot of musicians, and not only that, the contributions from those collaborations are really, I would say, enlightening, because that allows you, it's like a feeling of complicity and support somehow. It's not only that you are doing something together with someone else, but it somehow supports you, gives you more confidence to go further. So it's very dangerous, because you can go further and further and further with complicity of collaborators. I think it helps to go further. So in that sense, collaborative work is extremely important. And sometimes people mix collaborative work with kind of no matter, or everything or anything is possible. No, not at all. It's not really about that. It's really can be very serious work and very supportive work, so that everyone works going in the same direction. I think it's really, for me, it's really something that is almost always there.
What about you, Fernando? Are you a loner?
Infelizmente nunca tive essa capacidade de trabalhar com outras pessoas, mas sinto que é um defeito meu e sinto que o meu trabalho podia ser potenciado se conseguisse trabalhar com outras pessoas. Por exemplo, no campo do vídeo, eu podia ter muitos mais vídeos se tivesse, enfim, colaborasse com alguém que trabalhasse nessa área e percebesse bem disso. O mesmo se passa com os poemas e na parte dos ambientes sonoros ou na sonoridade dos poemas. Também podia ser muito mais desenvolvido, potenciado, enfim. Mas eu sempre tive esse defeito, que eu considero um defeito dessa dificuldade em trabalhar com outras pessoas. Talvez também não tenha tido grandes oportunidades por outras razões, mas sinto, por exemplo, no caso do Miguel, quando há esse trabalho em conjunto, que o trabalho pode ser muito valorizado. Claro, há experiências diferentes que se podem acumular e resultar num trabalho muito mais interessante.
Okay, so we are approaching the final. Thank you. And before I ask the audience if they have any question, which is welcome, I'd like to ask one more thing to each one of to Alessandra and Fernando mostly, which is we have asked you to prepare a short composition specifically dedicated to this pair of words, dissonant dissidence, and I would like you to briefly present it to the audience, assuming that these people will be here tonight and a lot more, not 6,000, but
yeah, but 50, which is overbooked, because our maximum number is 49.
nice. Okay.
So 50 is already overbooked.
So maybe you could just briefly explain what is it that you had in mind when you prepared this brief or not piece relating to dissidence.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the voice, how it changes in different states, when you are afraid, when you are nervous, when you are angry, when you have anger, when you are, what you want to express something. So I'm working, again, let's say, with this aspect of the voice. So how my voice can become also kind of political medium, no? It's always, of course, but I was questioning this aspect. So I was also inspired by this idea that as a migrant in Germany, how change my voice, the way how I speak, I talk, if I speak in another language, even now, even before, I realize how my way to express myself in English is very different. The melody, but also the intention, it's something hidden. And so I wanted to explore this aspect, this hidden aspect of the voice when I have been composing this piece that I will present tonight. And so the multiple voices and multiple language, it's both are main, let's say, topics of the work I've been exploring. And then I got also, as I was mentioning before, I was also inspired let's say, affected by the politics at the moment in Germany and oppression that we are experiencing in Germany, in Berlin especially. So that's why I was mentioning before, in my piece that you will listen tonight, I also included some audio recordings, original recording from demonstration where I took part, of course, in Berlin. Very peaceful demonstrations. We were really lucky. And also I just wrote down some words of a poet that I can, very brief, as a short one, from Audre Lorde, who defined herself as a black lesbian mother, warrior, and poet. In Your Silence Will Not Protect You, she says, she suggests that it's better to speak out, even if you are afraid of the consequences of speaking out, even if you have to pay a cost for speaking out, whatever the costs of speaking out, the costs of not speaking out will always be too high. No, she mentioned this. She's talking about, of course, something different, like racism and sexism, but I find very powerful words, those ones, so I wanted to share these suggestions with you, and it's all about these ideas.
Eu penso que ao longo da minha intervenção poética esses conceitos da dissonância e da dissidência vão ser abordados, portanto, porque é uma questão de uma maneira geral. Não criei nenhuma peça específica para tratar. Porque é como digo, a partir da poesia experimental, para mim é sempre algo dissidente e, portanto, a partir desse momento, esse conceito já foi abrangido.
And what about the perspective from Miso Music? What are you planning of doing with these pieces that were created specifically for this event, if not now, in the future?
We haven't planned anything because this freedom remains inside the artists themselves.
Okay.
And so it's something we'll discuss. If they find it will be interesting, then we'll, later on, I think we'll talk about maybe bringing everything together, all those contributions from all the participating artists probably in an edition or something, or we'll celebrate something or recreate something with that. I think for now it's completely open.
Okay.
I have to thank you very much, you, Rui and Manuel, for bringing in this idea, for pushing these people to be reactive, to speak out, exactly. And so that's it. What we are here for. That's our purpose: is to promote it and to support it. So we'll see. Depends what we would like to do with it. If there is any ideas behind it, special, give this here too, and Sarah too, I think, or somehow. And so
we'll see.
We'll see.
Yes, we'll hear. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Any question from the audience?
One.
Yes, please.
Alessandra,
Yeah.
thinking about several things you have said, confusion, interaction, I must tell you that all of the time, because of the light and the shadow, you have a very funny Hitler's mustache. At least,
You have a funny Hitler mustache.
at least from my place. I don't know if the...
Question the others. Do you see the?
No, I don't.
It's in your mind.
You're funny.
No, it's my place. That's the topic of Fernando, the importance of the place for the work of art. So this is really a confusion in my mind.
Okay, so also please allow me to tell you that we have several artists' books and publications there. Some of them brought by the artists themselves, Dirk and Alessandra, and I think that Sarah, some CD as well.
Yes.
Okay, and then also from Pay-Per-View in Leiria, Sal is here to help you navigate through the immense diversity of concrete visual sound poetry publications. Thank you so much, Miguel and Paula, for welcoming us.
Thank you.
And see you tonight at 9 for not a performance but a intervention by Fernando.
Yes, a poetic intervention by Fernando, followed by a performance.
Followed by a performance
by Alessandra.
Thank you so much. Obrigado, Fernando.